Did you know there's a piece of Kentucky that Kentucky can't even reach? Or that Michigan's most valuable land was a consolation prize it didn't even want? These are 25 US borders that make no sense until you know the story. Number 25. Washington. There's a town where Americans need a passport to buy groceries in their own country. It's called Point Roberts, a 5-square-mile chunk of the US stuck on the tip of a Canadian peninsula, home to about 1,200 very patient Americans. So, how do you strand a whole town? Simple. Back in 1846, the US and Britain agreed on the border with one simple rule. Just draw a straight line across the map at the 49th parallel. Except nobody looked at the coastline first. Out west, that line happened to slice across a little peninsula hanging off the Canadian mainland. And the tip below the line? Technically American. Problem is, it only connects to Canada. So if you live in Point Roberts and want to drive literally anywhere else in your own country, you cross into Canada, drive 25 miles through British Columbia, and cross back into Washington state. 2 border stops just to leave town. The kids there cross an international border 4 times a day just for school. Passports, customs, then math class. It's a piece of America that America literally can't touch. Number 24. Minnesota. And you think that's bad? There's a chunk of the United States that exists because of a typo. Look at the top of Minnesota and you'll spot a little chimney of land poking into Canada, the only piece of the lower 48th north of the 49th parallel. It's called the Northwest Angle, and you can thank the diplomats who ended the Revolutionary War in 1783. Their map drew the Lake of the Woods completely wrong and put the source of the Mississippi somewhere it flat out wasn't. The border they wrote down was geographically impossible, so the patch job stranded a scrap of Minnesota with no American road to it. Nobody ever cleaned it up. A centuries-old typo frozen into the map forever. Number 23. Delaware. Now, what happens when you draw a border with a compass instead of a ruler? You get a 220-year fight. Back in 1701, surveyors drew Delaware's northern edge as a 12-mile arc centered on the town of Newcastle, the only curved state border in America. The problem? Circles don't care about geography. The arc created overlapping claims with Pennsylvania, including a disputed silver called the Wedge that both sides fought over until 1921. Do the math. That argument ran longer than the United States had even existed when it finally ended. Every other state settled its borders and moved on. Delaware spent 2 centuries arguing over a curve. And won. Number 22. Vermont. There's a library where checking out a book means leaving the country. The Haskell Free Library looks like any cozy small-town library until you spot the black line painted across the floor. That's the actual international boundary. The front door sits in the United States. Most of the books sit in Canada. Grab a novel and congratulations, you've technically imported it. Oh, and upstairs, somehow it gets weirder. The same building holds a Victorian opera house where the border cuts diagonally through the room. So the audience claps in America while the actors perform in Canada. Best part, it was built this way on purpose in 1904 as a gift to both towns. Proof a border doesn't have to be a wall. Number 21. Alaska. How much can one lazy sentence cost? For Canada, about 500 miles of coastline. That weird Alaska panhandle hugging the Pacific, blocking Canada from the ocean? Blame sloppy writing. When Russia owned Alaska, its treaty with Britain said Russian territory ran 10 marine leagues inland, roughly 30 miles, without ever saying inland from where. Nobody cared because nobody lived there. Then Russia sold Alaska to America. Gold turned up near the Panhandle, and suddenly everybody cared. A lot. Both countries claimed different lines, and in 1903, a tribunal sided mostly with America. Canada was so furious its delegates refused to sign, and the grudge helped push the country toward running its own foreign affairs. Proofread your treaties, folks. Number 20. Kentucky. How does a state lose track of its own territory? Ask Kentucky, because there's a piece of it you can't reach from Kentucky. It's a loop of land sitting west of the Mississippi River, completely surrounded by Missouri and Tennessee, and the only way in by land is through Tennessee. The border was locked to where the river flowed at the time, and the Mississippi, being the Mississippi, refused to stay put. It meanders, erodes, and carves new channels whenever it's in the mood, but the legal line never moves an inch. So the Kentucky Bend got stranded, a little orphan of bluegrass in the wrong neighborhood. The river changed its mind, and the map stayed the same to this day. Number 19. Maine. Did you know the US and Canada are in an active territorial dispute right now, and the territory is run by Puffins? The prize is Machias Seal Island, a tiny fog-bound rock both countries have claimed since the Revolutionary War era, and neither will budge an inch. Canada's big move? Staffing a lighthouse there, even though the light's been automated for years, purely as living proof of presence. America's countermove? Keeping the claim on paper and pretending nothing's happening. When both countries went to the International Court of Justice in the 1980s over nearby waters, they quietly agreed to leave the island out entirely, because neither wanted to risk losing. Meanwhile, thousands of nesting puffins actually run the place. Honestly, they're doing better than the lawyers. Number 18. New Jersey. What state is the Statue of Liberty in? If you said New York, you're wrong, along with basically the entire planet. Liberty Island sits entirely in New Jersey's side of the harbor, surrounded by New Jersey water, standing on New Jersey's submerged land. The island itself? That's a tiny exclave of New York, locked in by a deal from 1834. New Jersey got the water, New York kept the islands. So the most famous symbol of New York City is a 14-acre speck of New York, completely encircled by another state. Swim 20 feet offshore in any direction and you've crossed a state line. Every tourist photo of Lady Liberty is technically framed by New Jersey. Whatever you do, don't tell New York. Number 17. Minnesota. Ever wondered what happens when a border just gives up? In the boundary waters between Minnesota and Ontario, the line vanishes into more than 1,000 interconnected glacial lakes, with no customs, no fences, no signs, just survey markers on ancient rock. Recreational boaters drift into Canada constantly without a clue, because the forest looks identical on both sides. And here's the best detail. Motors are banned in the protected wilderness, so the crews maintaining the boundary markers have to reach them by canoe, paddling the same routes indigenous nations used centuries ago. A 21st century border maintained with 17th century transportation, and it works beautifully. Number 16. Florida. What do you do when part of your state wants a divorce? If you're Florida, you ignore it 11 times. Cut off from the rest of the state by swamps and dense forest, the Panhandle's residents felt way more connected to Alabama. And between 1811 and 1901, they tried to join it 11 separate times. The closest call came in 1869, when 64% of West Florida voters said yes to annexation. A clear majority, ready to go. And Alabama said no. Why? It would have had to buy the land from Florida for $1 million, over $20 million today, and it just didn't seem worth it. Alabama could have doubled its coastline. It checked the price tag and walked away instead. Number 15. New York. What happens when a border shows up somewhere a nation already exists? The Mohawk territory of Akwesasne was there long before anyone drew a line through North America. Then the border arrived, and it didn't go around. It carved straight through the community, leaving New York on one side and Ontario and Quebec on the other. One nation answering to 3 separate governments at once. And thanks to how the St. Lawrence River runs, some residents have to pass through the United States and clear customs just to reach the rest of Canada. In places, the line cuts directly through buildings, with families technically living in 2 countries. The border never respected the map that was already there. Number 14. The Western States. Want to hear a secret that 2 governments are keeping quiet? huge stretches of the US-Canada border are officially wrong. That flawless line along the 49th parallel looks like precision engineering. It's a lie. The 19th century survey crews who marked it crossed 1,000 miles of wilderness with compasses and metal chains. No GPS, and they drifted off course over and over. So the two countries had a choice: resurvey an entire continent or just make the mistakes legal. They chose option 2, signing treaties declaring the physical markers on the ground to be the real border, even where they missed the parallel completely. Nobody relitigates any of it. The mistakes didn't get fixed. They got promoted. Number 13. New York. How chaotic can one border get? Try threading it through 1,800 islands. In the section of the St. Lawrence known as the Thousand Islands, the line stops following the river and starts running a maze. It weaves between islands big enough for mansions and islands barely big enough for one tree. Some are American, some are Canadian, and a few sit so close to the line that neighbors in different countries could toss a rope between their docks and call it international shipping. And if you think that's messy, buckle up, because one border coming up in the top 5 was decided by a dead pig, and another one accidentally built Las Vegas. Number 12. Vermont. What's the most illegal thing you can do on a quiet residential street? On Canusa Avenue, it's visiting your neighbor. This little street sits right on the Vermont-Quebec line, and the painted stripe down the middle of the road isn't a traffic marking. It's the actual international boundary. Houses on the north side, Canada. South side, United States. Which means popping across the street to borrow sugar is, legally speaking, an unauthorized border crossing, unless you report to customs first. But the real punchline is underground, where both countries share the same water and sewer pipes, flowing back and forth across the line like it doesn't exist. Two sovereign nations, quite literally held together by the same plumbing. Number 11. Maine. Ready for a geographic riddle? There's a Canadian park you can only drive to by leaving Canada. Roosevelt Campobello International Park preserves Franklin Roosevelt's summer home, and it's the only park on Earth jointly owned, funded, and run by two national governments under a 1964 treaty. The island sits entirely in New Brunswick, Canada. Simple, right? Except the island's only road connection is a bridge from Lubec, Maine. So follow the logic. For Canadians to drive to this Canadian island, they exit their own country, cross through the United States, then clear customs back into Canada at the far end of the bridge. A one-of-a-kind park with a one-of-a-kind commute. Number 10. New York and New Jersey. How do you split an island between two states? Apparently, with landfill. In 1834, New York and New Jersey cut a deal. The water border runs through the middle of the harbor, but New York keeps the islands. Handshakes all around. Then Ellis Island got massively expanded with landfill, and in 1998, the two states landed in court over who owned the new parts. The ruling was almost a comedy. The original natural island belongs to New York. Everything built on top of New Jersey's water afterward belongs to New Jersey. So today the island is carved along a line only a lawyer could love. 12 million immigrants thought they arrived in New York. Legally, most of the ground disagrees. Number 9. Illinois. Can a river steal a state capital? Mississippi did. Kaskaskia wasn't just some sleepy river town, it was the first capital of Illinois. A genuinely big deal. Then 1881 happened. A massive flood shifted the Mississippi's entire course and left the town stranded on what's now the Missouri side of the river. That's not even the craziest part. The land is still legally Illinois to this day, even though the river says otherwise, and only a handful of people still live there. A former state capital, marooned inside another state's shoreline by one bad flood, held in place by nothing but paperwork. The Mississippi River doesn't negotiate with anyone, and it definitely doesn't negotiate with maps. Number 8. Minnesota. Guess what America's northernmost border crossing looks like? It's a video phone in a parking lot. This is the northwest angle again. You know, that chunk of Minnesota you can only reach by driving through Canada. And when you drive back in, there's no checkpoint. No officer, no booth, You pull up to a small shelter at a spot called Jim's Corner, press a button, and a customs agent appears on a screen asking what you're carrying. That's it. The entire border apparatus for the northernmost point of the lower 48 fits in a box the size of a phone booth. Oh, and the roughly 100 people who live there? They once got so fed up with cross-border fishing rules that they threatened to secede and join Canada. And it worked. Washington caved. 100 people held a superpower hostage with a fishing rod. Number 7. Maine. What happens when two nations mobilize tens of thousands of troops? Apparently, one dead bear. In 1838, the US and Britain squared off over a disputed stretch of forest between Maine and New Brunswick. Tens of thousands of soldiers marching to fight over trees. It's officially the Aroostook War, but the troops were fed so much salted pork and beans that history remembers it as the Pork and Beans War, which tells you how seriously anyone took it. Not one battle was ever fought. The most famous reported casualty was a bear, shot in a confused nighttime encounter by soldiers who thought they were under attack. Diplomacy eventually drew a firm line, and everyone went home embarrassed. But keep that scoreboard handy. US border, 0. Animals, 1. This border wasn't done losing wars to wildlife. Not even close. Number 6. Missouri. How rich do you have to be to bend a state border around your own property? Ask John Hardiman Walker. Look at the bottom of Missouri, and you'll spot a strange notch dropping into Arkansas. That's the Bootheel, and it exists because of exactly one man. When Missouri prepped for statehood in 1820, its southern border was supposed to be a clean, straight line, which would have dumped the Bootheel region into Arkansas. Walker looked at that plan and decided his land was absolutely not going to Arkansas. So he lobbied Congress relentlessly, and Congress caved, bending the border 30 miles south around his holdings. That notch isn't geography. It's one man's real estate tantrum, written into the shape of a state forever. Number 5. Michigan. What's the best consolation prize in American history? Michigan knows, but it took a while. In the 1830s, Ohio and the Michigan Territory both claimed a strip of land around Toledo, a standoff remembered as the Toledo War. The feds sided with Ohio, and Michigan got handed the Upper Peninsula as an apology gift. And Michigan hated it. Locals called it a worthless frozen wilderness stuck to the wrong side of a lake. And fair point, it physically connects to Wisconsin, not Michigan. Then surveyors discovered the place was absolutely stuffed with iron and copper, kicking off a mining boom that powered Michigan's entire industrial rise. Michigan lost Toledo and won a treasure chest. Somewhere, Ohio is still not thinking about this. Number 4. New York. Where's the worst possible place to build an anti-Canada fortress? Inside Canada. In 1816, the United States started constructing a massive stone fortress on Lake Champlain to guard against a British invasion from the north. Cutting-edge design, serious money, big ambitions. Then, a better survey came back with some awkward news. The border actually sat farther south than everyone thought, meaning America had built its defense against Canada on Canadian soil. The military quietly walked away from the half-finished structure. Locals gleefully nicknamed it Fort Blunder, and nearby farmers carted off the stones to build their barns. Years later, a treaty nudged the line so the US could rebuild on the exact same spot, legally this time. Don't move the fort, I guess. Move the border instead. Number 3. Washington. Remember that pig from the intro? Here's the full story. In 1859, on San Juan Island, claimed by both America and Britain thanks to a fuzzy treaty, an American settler shot a British company's pig for rooting through his garden. That's the whole incident. One pig, one garden, one very bad day. Troops poured in. Warships gathered. Both nations kept armed camps at opposite ends of the island for years. And through all of it, not a single shot was fired between them. The dispute finally went to arbitration under the Kaiser of Germany, who handed the island to America. Final scoreboard for 2 near wars: humans 0, animals 2. The pig never saw it coming. Number 2. Nevada. What if I told you Congress accidentally decided where Las Vegas would exist? When Nevada became a territory in 1861, it was a boring rectangle, and it nearly stayed one. Then, in 1866, Congress carved off the northwest corner of Arizona Territory and handed Nevada a strange southern triangle. The reasons were pure politics. Reward Nevada for staying loyal to the Union during the Civil War, grab access to the Colorado River, and take a flyer on land that was, at the time, mostly empty desert. Nobody in that room had the faintest clue what they'd just done, because that empty desert now holds Las Vegas, the Hoover Dam's water rights, and one of the biggest tourism economies on Earth. A congressional thank you note accidentally built Sin City. Number 1. Texas. After 24 stories of stubbornness, want to hear the one time America just said sorry? Every border on this list is a blunder that got kept, defended, or promoted into law, which is exactly what makes this one so strange. In 1906, a man-made channel diversion shifted the Rio Grande and accidentally left a chunk of Mexico, a town called Rio Rico, sitting on the American side. For decades, it just sat in limbo. People lived there, raised families, built homes, all on the wrong side of the line. Then, in 1970, America did the unthinkable. It handed the land back. A peaceful agreement, some paperwork, done. The strangest border mistake in America is the one somebody actually fixed without incident. Which border story did you think was the craziest? Let me know in the comments below. And for more stories of location fascination, make sure to hit that subscribe button.